Developed and published originally for the Sega Mega Drive in 1995, that of Comix Zone. The premise of the game is that Sketch Turner, an amateur artist and musician, is living in New York City while working on his newest comic book called Comix Zone. Comix Zone is the story of the New World Empire's attempt to defend the Earth from an alien invasion. Whilst details in the game highlight that Sketch is getting inspirations for writing Comix Zone from a series of realistic yet highly disturbing dreams he's had recently when he sleeps. One night while Sketch is sleeping, it's raining, and during a thunderstorm, a bolt of lightning strikes a panel of Comix Zone that he's working on. As a result, in that particular instant, upon the panel, the main villain of the comic that Sketch is working on, Mortis, comes to life and escapes from the page. But upon escaping, Mortis learns that he doesn't have any sort of power in the real world. He then draws Sketch into the comic of his own creation to kill him through drawing enemies that later do his work and attempt to kill for him. Through Sketch's travels in the comic, he meets Alyssa Cyan, who calls him the chosen one to save the world from the evil of Mortis. Through details in the game, Sketch along with Alyssa and others attempt to stop Mortis's evil plans and to find a way to release Sketch from the comic. At the final fight at the end of the game, there are different endings depending on the details that the player completes the game through. Upon original release, the visuals were mentioned to be highly realistic for the time by both critics and gamers. Appearance-wise, it was one of the first video games to depict comic panels, voice bubbles, as well as action effects similar to how they would theoretically appear as depicted from an American comic book. But some critics how the appeal of the game lose its value after a bit of time and become repetitive, while some later theorized that the actions in the game were even considered to be boring. Depending on the player experiencing the game, it was actually considered a somewhat more difficult game for casual players, due to when the game was in development, Sega's research and testing division considered the game too simple. As a result of the increased difficulties, casual players couldn't necessarily complete the game due to the higher difficulty level, or lost interest in playing or never technically finished the game. Due to the video game also receiving more focus from Sega's department, the game received the full attention from developers. But even with all of this attention, due to various circumstances, Comix Zone was released sooner than what was originally scheduled for, and 2 levels were unfinished and were actually removed from the final version of the game. Upon its release, the concept of Comix Zone as well as the character of Sketch Turner were unique, because before and since Comix Zone's release, there hasn't exactly been another main character of a video game similar to Sketch's circumstances, and the game became one of the most well-known of the mid-1990s in the United States. Eventually, most of the extreme and eye-catching features of the game were considered outdated, and though there were some possible claims of interest for a modern version of Comix Zone, even if it were to be remade, it wouldn't have the same impact as the original did from the mid-1990s. Sometimes a character can be forgotten because the premise as well as the concept were unique trends from a previous era.